All right, Dan, we have our final match set up in the Owen Hart men's tournament with roughly a 25-minute main event with Hangman Page and Kyle Fletcher. Hangman advancing. What did you think? Has this tournament gone the way you thought you would? And also, what did you think of the main event tonight?
Yeah, I would have gotten this one right, I suppose, if I would have predicted the finalists, and that's a good thing. This is not what you want. A lot of times they go face heel, however you do it, but it kind of feels bigger when they go face, and they're two very different faces, and it added more intrigue to it that they didn't do the most predictable thing. So I like the finals a lot. I'm excited about that. Like when they were promoting Mercedes and Hayter for the Double or Nothing, I'm like, that's a little bit not enough. Yeah. But I'm thinking, well, it's probably going to be Hangman and Ospreay, which will certainly get people excited, and it's got me excited. So I like where they're going. I thought the match was good. There were a couple little things that maybe irritated me just slightly, but generally it was quite good. And credit to Fletcher for working through that abrasion, or if you want to call it that. Yeah. So it was good.
So what you piqued my interest? What bugged you about the match?
That O'Connor roll. I know it sounds super nitpicky, but sometimes these referees in AEW, the guy's shoulders weren't even close to down, and he still counted too. When Fletcher, when I think it was Hangman did the O'Connor roll on Fletcher, I believe it was, and even like I liked the double buckshots at the end, but I never did get a look at the second one. Like the camera, that wasn't really any, but the camera was a little weird on the way that on the finish, and so that came up earlier tonight really bad with a Kevin Knight dive over the top rope, and I'm like, you just want your production to be maybe just a hair sharper. So these are minor issues. I really enjoyed the show, but we got to maybe give people some talking points. I don't know.
So how do you think Fletcher is coming along? Hangman, we should kind of talk about where Hangman is relative to Kyle Fletcher too. Kyle Fletcher, how is he come along as a character, as a heel? Is he a believable top tier act? Hangman's already established that. And then how do you compare? You've seen, especially with all the Japanese style wrestling you've watched, but all kinds of wrestling you've watched. How do you compare these two wrestlers? They put together a really nice main event match here. I don't think it'll get match of the year, but it's like in 92, it would have been talked about as such. It's just, so what, to compare, well, first answer the first part about how Kyle Fletcher's come along as a character. And then part two, how do you compare their ring acumen to one another?
Okay, so my observation, and we're all biased by what we've seen. I've watched Hangman for a long time.
Yeah.
I do feel like he's a little bit more in control of things. And again, it's hard to put your finger on it, but there were just a couple spots in that match tonight that seemed a little off. I can't even really.
By Hangman's fault?
I don't know,
okay.
Honestly. And it wasn't anything, terrible.
Yeah.
But it was just a couple times they were outside the ring. I was like, this is a little, maybe just, I don't even want to say clunky because that makes it sound worse than it was, but just a little different than what I might have expected. But generally, I was thinking about that, how well with Kevin Knight also, just as shortly as he's been there, he's coming along nicely. Speedball's coming along nicely. Like, they're losing some talent to WWE, but they're doing a good job of building their own. And if I look at where Fletcher was a year ago, kind of as the underling, then I'm really pleased with where he's at. So maybe he's not at the very peak of where he could be, but it's been a good, year to 18 months for him for sure. And then, I think Hangman, the only thing is I'm sitting there wondering, is Swerve going to make an appearance? You always have that in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
With Hangman, and if they do that, it would be at the main event, obviously at the finals anyway. But I don't know if that thought should cross my mind as much as it does, but I don't know if that's really anybody's fault either.
It's the promoter's fault to have conditioned you to expect that. We had a squash match with the Ops, and of course, Mox and his crew came out and attacked him. We kind of expect that. That's part of why I liked this show, and I think it was an average Dynamite with a really good standout main event. Maybe above average Dynamite, but like up until the main event. It was just sort of like it was just solid hour, 45 minutes before the main event of, affording some storylines. We'll talk about MJF and Hurt Syndicate. I want to get your view on that storyline. Tony Storm in a match, an impromptu ROH TV title match. I mean, it had enough. It was fine. It kind of had a collision vibe to it, actually, in certain ways, in terms of just straight. But I don't mind straightforward every now and then. I think when you aim for, oh my God, this is going to generate buzz and we're going to hot shot, and every match after it's over, we're going to have a run-in and a brawl. It's like with Paul Levesque in WWE, we've seen sort of a pattern of like the excessive tropes of certain things, the pull-apart brawls all over the building and backstage. This it wasn't showing off. It wasn't desperate. It was just like, if you like pro wrestling, we're going to give you our current AEW product. It's going to make some news for it, some storylines. And by the way, stay tuned because we got a really killer main event for you that's going to tip the scales in the end to make it worth your time. And I'm totally okay with that. You wouldn't want 20 weeks in a row of this. You need some ebb and flow, but I don't even call it a maintenance show because they did forward some things, but it wasn't a try too hard show. It was just,
right.
There was a certain quiet confidence to it, and I'm okay with it. I don't think we have 2 hours of material on the post show, like some shows give us. But that's okay. There's some things to talk about, and we will.
Yeah, and I actually considered using the term maintenance show before you mentioned it, and it does seem unfair. It was more than that. It was a solid show, and I think the thing is I really do feel like AEW television's been on a really positive roll the last few months, and so maybe it doesn't quite meet that average standard for those weeks. But if you look at when they were a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, when things were still struggling around a little bit, it's a different program now. I mean, I was thinking, I've been working my butt off and all this stuff at the end of the school year, and I watch everything on DVR now. Sometimes I'll catch, but even when I watch AEW, I usually start at 7:30 and catch up by the end. And I watch through all the commercials. Max is not doing picture in picture, and I didn't mind it. Like, it was a pleasant 2 hours, and on the commercials I could make sure people were complaining about my exam and look at my email and get back to it. And I mean, it's certainly, I'm pleased to be here. I don't regret watching the show. So, so there you go. I mean, there's a lot worse things in the world, in the entertainment genre, especially than that. So yeah, I think it was more than fine, as you said. I mean, I don't want to sell it short.
Well, let's throw a few viewer comments up here in the chat. Derek Mitchell said, Dynamite is 3 weeks removed from folks proclaiming the best Dynamite ever last week was a bad follow-up, and this week not that much better. Okay, that's too much for my brain to process, Derek. I don't know what you just said there. Maybe restate it. I thought I got it.
Quote the matches. Like I said, my brain is fried, man. I just been working all day.
Sorry, Derek. It might not be your fault. It might be ours. Let me read Squared Circle Society podcast. So look at that. You put your podcast as your name, and you get a plug. Great main event, but the overall show was meh. And Goodfella 1422 said, throughout the show, I wish they let some moves breathe, give it a second to what we just saw because it was cool. I mean, that's just a general comment on AEW and modern style.
I will say something about that, about the pacing. Yeah. I did like, and I think that they introduced her and they did that little bit of intro, but Excalibur was like talking at 2 times speed just because they were so afraid somebody would change the channel. It's a step in the right direction, but again, breathing is okay. Like you don't. Yeah. I'm like, damn, did I hit my settings on my TV? Is he talking, 2 times faster than normal? It's okay to, you can have a 45-second or whatever it is, like a half longer intro than whatever it was they did, but it was better than nothing. So I'll give them that.
Yeah. So Adam Kidd just said, very good main event.
Sure.
All right, so Derek has tried again. So for fun, I'm going to read his original text. We're going to have fun here. And then he's followed up. Dynamite is 3 weeks removed from folks proclaiming the best Dynamite ever last week was a bad follow-up, and this week, not that much better. Any better, Dan?
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to remember what was. It didn't seem like I thought last week's show was fine. There's nothing that.
Well, so what you mean is you understand what he said. I'm going to read what Derek restated. to make it more clear for my sake. Apparently,
Okay.
it was okay.
No,
for you.
maybe okay. Yeah.
So Derek says 3 weeks ago, folks were proclaiming
Right.
Dynamite was one of the best ever. Correct.
I'm
But
with
the last
him.
2 weeks have been less than stellar. Perfect.
Yeah,
Yes.
I followed. I just
Yep.
can't remember the specific matches on those shows.
Two weeks ago was really good. Yeah, 2 weeks ago was really good.
Yeah.
I mean, whoa, this is, it just struck at, like, it seemed to strike everybody. This was a really good Dynamite, and the last 2 weeks were follow. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
But,
but I was thinking it was 2 weeks ago instead of 3. Also.
That's what threw me off too. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that. I mean, 3 shows ago, but 2 weeks ago. I mean, technically, 15 days ago. I don't know.
Okay.
Is that good math? Is that good math? Do we count each Wednesday?
Yeah. No,
so I think that he meant 3 shows
ago. That's 2 weeks ago, though.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. 14 days ago. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, if we count each Wednesday, then that always screws me. I overthink it. Anyway. So
7 days in a week, Wade. I think I got this one right.
But no, Thursday. Well, now we got to fight this out. Thursday, 2 weeks ago, to Wednesday today is 14 days. But if you count the Wednesday, the three Dynamites ago there was a Wednesday. If you count that Wednesday, you have 3 Wednesdays, and then 2 of every other day in between. So it's 15 days.
Yeah, but they're 14 days apart. 1 to 15 is 14.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, you're an econ. I'll
That's where I live.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Derek saying sorry for the confusion. I don't know. I'm just having.
I kind of enjoy it. It's okay. We're in a mood, I think.
Yes, exactly. We're just trying to have some fun here. So I don't know if the listeners are having fun. Hopefully they are. We'll stop and get a little more serious. Jonathan Ertl says, Wade doing Steiner math, LOL. Blake Riley says, I wasn't prepared for Keller math tonight. So anyway. Yeah. All right. Well, let's just do this. Let's pause. Let's let's regather ourselves here and introduce the show. And then we got Derek waiting as a caller who we haven't had as a caller in a long time. So very interested to talk to him. And obviously we'll be doing conversation on I thought Bobby was going to say yes to MJF this week. So I was surprised by that. And we'll get into that. And we'll get into Hurt Syndicate just beating up some cheerleaders backstage. It was a new Spirit Squad or something. They just threw them around. It was worth chuckles, but I thought kind of was a little bit tone wise, a little too frivolous for, I don't know. I mean, we'll get into that. I don't feel
in a different era that would have scared some fans from chanting "We hurt people," but I guess we're beyond that.
Yeah. All right, this is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show on Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller. I'm host of the show. I am the editor, publisher, and founder of PWTorch, started as and continues as a weekly newsletter. Here's hot off the presses, this week's newsletter. So paper copy still going. And so you can subscribe to that. Just go to PWTorch, PWTorch.com/GoVIP. There's links to get a VIP membership and get digital copies every week and all kinds of other benefits, podcasts, our library, ad-free website. And that also will direct you to the sign-up page if you want to have your mailbox. Look forward to going to your mailbox again, not just have bills and stuff like that, but have a newsletter once a week to settle in and read in the sunshine with your screen off. I started that over 35 years ago, and we have marched through all kinds of technologies, 900 numbers, the website still going strong, PWTorch.com, just celebrated 25 years of that late last year. And now here we are, podcasting and simulcasting, so to speak, live on YouTube with a video version. And it's great to have you with us, whether you're watching us live or on delay. I'm here live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown with a live post show. We interact with the chat room and also emailers and live callers. The email is wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to be a caller, you have to be a VIP member or a Patreon supporter. The link to be a caller is included in my TV report on our VIP website. So if you go to my Dynamite report, you can look for the link, and that gives you the link to be a caller, and you can just click on that and end up in the waiting room. On Patreon, you can just go to your feed, and there's a link there for you. We also, as I said, have a chat going, and we'll keep an eye on that as the show progresses and bring some of your comments up on the screen and read them and try to understand them if it's too much for us. And as always, I'm joined by a co-host, and today it's Dan Kuester. He's a PWTorch contributor, a Japan specialist, so it's a good week to have him on to delve into what some people would say is bearing the lead. The biggest story isn't the Owen Hart Cup men's final main event result, not MJF and Hurt Syndicate, but Okada and Omega going face-to-face in the ring in an AEW ring. And I want to get into the historical significance of that and what you thought of how they handled that tonight. So we'll get to that too. Dan, welcome to the post show.
Well, thank you very much, Wade. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, like I said, we get to visit here. Maybe every 6 to 8 weeks, I guess, and I always look forward to it. Look forward to the interaction with the callers and chatters. And like I said, it was a straightforward show tonight, but it was enjoyable. So I think it'll be a fun show to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we got more chat comments, but we'll get to those in a moment. Let's bring Derek on and see what he has to say about tonight's show. Derek, welcome. Good to see and hear from you again. We talked to you in the chat, but it's been a while since you called.
Yeah, I go to bed really early, so usually I'll make it like 20 minutes, and then the Sandman's calling me. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. But I enjoyed most of the show tonight. I thought AEW's been better. I always have it on in the background, but there has been really months since I've been more of a passive watcher, where I just find myself doing other things because it doesn't engage me. It doesn't interest me. I think the big thing is I'm not interested by the stories, and I'm not really into many of the characters. And so some of that's on me. I think sometimes we kind of think it's everyone is feeling like you, but there's other things going on. So that's kind of been my take. Mm-hmm. One thing I do want to bring up, and I'm sure it's on your topic list, because tonight was perhaps somewhat of a conclusion, or if not a major chapter in the story, but I really disliked the MJF Hurt Syndicate story. Not for the story.
Or tonight.
Yeah, all along.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I think it just shone a light on it tonight, because if that was a conclusion, I was like, well, we got nothing. A whole lot of nothing.
I don't think it's the conclusion, though, Derek. I mean, you may think they're dragging it out too long, but I think we'll hear more about it for certain.
Yeah, but I think dragging it on so long is my main concern, and that is how it's made MJF look. I mean, I cannot think of a main eventer who was begging to be a minion in somebody else's stable. And it's hard for me to consider that MJF seems like he's backtracked almost 3 years to being this needy kid who wants to fit in with the cool kids, when at one time he was the main eventer who was building minions to do his bidding. And I think it just makes him look so pathetic.
I think Taz was feeling similar to you, Derek, because he was like, hey, MJF, he's been a world champion. He's a tough guy. Like, he was almost kind of trying to make up for the impression MJF is giving. I will say this, two things. One, as far as the story taking a long time, I understand thinking that, but I actually think every week there's been some progression. I don't say nitpick, because I think nitpick is sometimes judging what is sometimes valid critiquing or opinion. So I think that's a loaded word. But we can decide if we like each chapter, pros and cons of each chapter that they've told. But what I like about it is it's not believable at all that Hurt Syndicate would bring MJF into the ranks. But I think that ultimately is where we're headed. And so to me, I'm relieved that the Hurt Syndicate didn't just welcome him in because he did some favor for them or offer them some women. And I love that Bobby Lashley tonight said, I can buy cars. And that MVP jumps in. Yeah, you own two like that before. So they've covered some, not plot holes, but little things that kind of undercut. Like, why would Shelton can get women on his own? Bobby can buy a car on his own and watches. Like, what is this? So what I think is happening is they're bringing us along in a story that's filling in a little bit as we got to fill TV time. We don't just just leap to the conclusion of storylines. It's an art, not a science in terms of how long to take it. But when MJF eventually, and I assume he will, but I don't know for sure based on this week, be accepted and get 3 thumbs up, it'll be because of something happening that convinces Bobby, where we were along for the ride, and we're like, well, I can see why Bobby said no all along. Good for him. But now I get why he said yes. And if they rushed into it, it would have felt like they rushed into it. This is not a natural pairing, for lack of a better term, Hurt Syndicate and MJF. So they have to take us through a process where there's resistance, and then a little acceptance and a little wavering and still resistance. So I like that. Part 2 of this is MJF's character, and I'll be brief on this. I just think he's a manipulative scumbag, and he is playing subservient strategically. I don't think we're to take seriously that he actually is groveling. He has a larger plan, but he knows to get accepted by Bobby and Shelton, who are alpha male types, he needs to act. He has to almost grovel, act subservient to them, but also offer them something, present an offer. So I think we're as viewers supposed to go, don't trust this guy. He's up to something. He's lulling you into a sense that he wants to obey you, but he really wants to undercut you. Derek.
Well, I can see your framing of him. He's a manipulative scumbag, but from my viewing eyes, he comes across more and more pathetic on every step of the story. Mm-hmm. He's offering him, he's trying to buy him, he's bribing him. And tonight when Bobby Lashley pushes him around, the way he reacted to being grabbed by the throat by Bobby Lashley was anything but a tough guy pro wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
It was,
but he's never really played tough guy pro wrestler.
When he's been at the height of his main event, he showed a tough streak.
Yeah. When he got pushed, when he got forced to, not as his primary role. Like when he fought CM Punk, he finally did after a lot happened. Like it's not like he's the bravest guy in the world. I mean, him cowering, I just take exception to that being terribly against his character because he's cowered a lot over the years. Now, you're right. When the time has come, he's turned it on. I still think he will in this story.
So, and I think what you just talked about, Dan, is when he went from that to being taken more seriously is when he turned that on and stopped being just a coward. There was levels to it where he was manipulative, a coward, but he was also dangerous. This whole Hurt Syndicate thing, which I think has been going on for 5 weeks, maybe. Is that about right?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
5 feels right.
He showed no backbone whatsoever.
But he can't, or he won't get his way. Like I think he's. If you want to join the Hurt Syndicate and you have MJF's reputation, and MJF is like, I go back with this guy. I think and they're openly saying we can help each other. We can, use each other. There's no hidden agenda here from MVP. He's telling Shelton and Bobby, he's friend. He's not going to betray me. We go way back. He is a scumbag, but we can use him. Maybe we can use him to our benefit. And MJF is very open. You guys can help me win a world title. You guys can. I'll scratch. I helped you win your match. You helped me win mine. It is a quid pro quo among bad guys. That's the pitch from MJF. So I mean, but MJF has to get in the group, and he can't do it by acting like an alpha. That's his strategy. So far, isn't working.
But when he is accepted, how is he anything but the fourth guy in a stable where he had to beg them to accept him? That's not a main event pro wrestler I want to see wrestle. But MJF doesn't show a lot of interest in wrestling anyways, to be honest.
Right.
Which is why his stock in my eyes has decreased so much, where every time that music hits, I'm like, this again? Okay, who's he going to try to offend with some cheap phrase that he thought of in the car ride or the airport on the way here? It's become a one-note pony. Or a one-trick pony is the expression, but it's a trick I don't want to see again. And I think the fact that he's went backwards so much to now I can't see him in a main event match, and this is not helping that, this is hurting that. I think that is the epitome of a story that is not working for his character, no matter how invested he seems to be in it. Mm-hmm. And when he's finally accepted, I'm just like, okay, so when they accept him, which is probably the end point of the story, he doesn't look any better to me. He looks worse. Okay, he's groveled at Shelton Benjamin. He's groveled at Bobby Lashley. He's not creating his own stable of killers to do his bidding.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, a couple things. Okay. When he did have his own stable, the Pinnacle, what was the criticism of him then? And I think it was a fair criticism.
But that was 4 years ago. I mean, you're telling me
you're going through his story. I'm going to talk about his story though.
Yeah.
What was the criticism of Max in the Pinnacle?
He didn't wrestle.
Well, that he didn't, but also that FTR didn't get much out of it. He wouldn't let Tully talk. He was too domineering. Now, I would argue he's matured some. He's going the opposite way. He is. I'm not going to argue with everything you're saying, Derek. I think you're making some good points. I like the story myself, and I think it's going somewhere. He is. What you're saying is true. He's groveling. He's doing these things, but he has established that he didn't go in the Owen. He wants his world title shot, and he thinks this guy MVP can get him there by skipping the line. and he's going to get a lot out of this eventually. And he doesn't care if he looks kind of silly because he's insincere anyway. That to me is not that inconsistent with his character. Secondly, just in general, and I do this way too often when I'm on here, talk about back in my day and what I watched 40 years ago. But I loved watching wrestling too, train Magnum TA. And I loved watching Kuester Darso turn into Evil Russian. Those things took week after week after week. I'm not saying that every story needs to take week after week after week, but I feel like the story is progressing every week in some way. And now he's been given the challenge to hurt somebody, to step up and be a man, not be a coward, not be sniveling. If he does it, maybe he gets in. I mean, I would say that this is going to be fairly judged when it's all over. I kind of like, I will say this. I was totally wrong about the Hurt Syndicate. Probably last time or 2 times ago, I was on with Wade because I was like, they're bringing in these WWE guys that they're fine, but do we really need to make them a focal point? I was totally wrong. I was totally wrong about Shelton Benjamin. Those guys have been a great addition to the show, in my opinion. And I think this dynamic is interesting. And you're right. The guy in the chat's right. He looks a little bit dorky. MJF does. I'd say at the end, he's probably not going to. I think it's going to play out just fine. And
I'll add this, Derek, and I'll throw back to you. I think MJF has this tactic he's trying, which is kiss up to them, say nice things, manipulate. He thinks he's the smartest man in the room. And he's got MVP on his side. And so he is playing the role he thinks he needs to play. If you want to get a promotion from a boss who wants everyone to be groveling, you grovel to get your raise or your promotion. If you're with a boss who wouldn't respect you for being that way, then you would act stronger and act more like a type A leader. He's adjusting to the circumstance to manipulate and get what he wants. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't a side effect, and that's what the chat is agreeing with you on, Derek. The side effect can be, okay, that is a realistic strategy, Wade's arguing. That might be what's going on here. But in the end, I don't look at MJF the same way because he does seem like he's a subservient groveler. And isn't he more than that as an ex-world champion, centerpiece, top paid guy, talking about ratings and all this? So that's the side effect. So the end result of this is I want to wait to the end to judge. I think there's reason for concern. And this could go 2 ways, but I think it's going to. My bet is it's going to end in a way where I don't think you'll be completely satisfied, Derek, but you'll be like, okay, there was an end point where I at least better understand the journey they took. I wouldn't have taken that journey myself, but at least I see it landed somewhere. And as Dan brought up, and I'll throw to you, Dan, when Lashley cornered him and said, "Now beat somebody up if you want to impress me," we do have another chapter, and that's when MJF, I talk about the boss. You got to show that you're strong, not weak. The boss Bobby's not threatened by MJF. He doesn't want to let someone into the group who is a wuss or who's groveling or who doesn't respect. So Bobby's going, go hurt someone. Now, that's not a very babyface thing to do unless it's within the confines of a ring or something. I mean, we can see how this plays out. I might have issues with it, but they did introduce the next chapter. MJF now can step up and try to win over Lashley. So, Dan, I know you were going to jump in.
Yeah, I just want to say, because I mean, I respect this conversation. I appreciate your points. I think you've made some really good points. But another thing to remember is this: MJF going into this story was not MJF right before he won the world title. That was MJF that'd been kind of floundering. Mm-hmm. So we have to look at where he was. I think, to be fair to the story, I think this is a better place for him than he was. Certainly the aftermath of the Adam Cole stuff. And, I find it really intriguing. I think it's really, to me, I really find it to be compelling television, if nothing else. And I do think everybody's going to come out of it okay.
It's like the Becky turn this time around. Like, well, Becky was kind of getting rejected and booed by fans. We're like, we're kind of over you now. And you can say, well, that's because they turned her last time and it was a mistake and they shouldn't have and it was bad timing and people loved her and then she screwed it up. Well, fine, but we are where we are with her. And there's less to lose turning her heel now unless you believe they could rehabilitate her after a time away. So Dan's right. Context matters. It's not, the final verdict on decisively saying this is worth it. But I think it's a good point. MJF has had a rough couple years and this gives him something different to do that takes us on a journey that in the end might reestablish his character as that guy playing head games with people who's outsmarting people, or at least tries to. Maybe it backfires, and certainly he's disingenuous Dougie Dog says in the chat, MJF's entire shtick is his disingenuousness. He's not groveling to get in a faction. He's trying to manipulate his way into a better outcome for himself. I would add through groveling, but he's not desperate to be in the group. He's using that tactic because he thinks it's the best way for him to get into the group, so it'll ultimately benefit him. Dougie Doug says it's Wrestling 101. Derek, back to you.
I think where maybe my main misgivings about it are this then. He's groveling to a boss, and I want him to be the boss. And I think where he's been, the place to be that to take you to the next step or get you back on the level that you were is to be the boss, not to be groveling, especially to MVP, who no matter how much they tried to pretend like he was something in wrestling, he was a mid-carder. I mean, in WWE in 2006, that was the height of his career, and so maybe they try to fool people that he was a bigger deal than he was, but he wasn't. Okay, and his presentation presents him like he was a bigger deal, and good on him. That's what you're supposed to do. But if I was going to grovel to somebody to get to the main event, I wouldn't be groveling to MVP. I would be groveling to someone who's legitimately been there.
But he already has MVP on his side, so he's not groveling to MVP. He's performing to win over Shelton and Bobby, knowing MVP it's looking at him going, yeah, this tactic might work. MVP wants MJF to get in the group, but he's not. He could pull MJF aside in the sort of storyline canon and go, hey, this tactic isn't working, try this. But then Bobby and Shelton would be like, it's like on Survivor, if you have an alliance, you can't go to somebody else and start acting like making plans with them, or the people in your alliance will say, wait, now you're talking to these other people. So I don't think MVP can on camera or in canon go to MJF and give him advice on how to win over Bobby and Shelton privately. So MJF has to MVP has to kind of do it in the ring, but you can tell MVP does respect Shelton and Bobby's opinion. They are all equals in their group. And, Bobby's the alpha, Shelton's the longtime veteran, respected worker who is having the best run personality wise. Like in terms of his character, this is the best run of his career. Way better than, what he did with Charlie Haas. I mean, there's good chemistry here. MVP was not a huge deal, but I mean, he always carried himself like he was. And this is, again, maybe the best use of MVP. I just want them to figure out if they're baby faces or heels and,
True. Yeah.
or at least put themselves in a position where they're not creating a headwind to the reaction that they ultimately want. Dan, looks like you want to jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and again, I'm going to date myself, but J.J. Dillon, Gary Hart, the best wrestling managers in history have something in common. They were all way worse in terms of in-ring success than MVP. I don't know that anybody's saying MVP was this world champion, amazing wrestler, but for whatever reason, he's coming across as very successful with the connection he has with Shelton and Bobby. And as a manager, he comes across as the cream of the crop to me.
Same with Bobby Heenan.
Bobby Heenan was the one that crossed my mind, and then I forgot about it.
Yep.
They were, J.J. Dillon would talk about, I think it was in his book, about how he wrestled really well one time. And when he was working for Paul Bosch, like, what are you doing? Like, you're supposed to be the incompetent now. You're the manager, not that he, I think there's money in putting MVP in an occasional 6-man or maybe 8-man match at some point, but that's not his role right now, is to be, this great wrestler.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your guys' comments. I think maybe and why I was compelled to call in is because I was very interested in MJF at a time, and now I'm not. And this is the step. It seems like the third storyline to get him back on track that, for me at least, is not presenting him up to his potential, is how I see it, which is a personal opinion.
Yeah.
And Derek, I'll just say, all this has been in the back of my mind. Like, it's not that I don't think what you're saying has any validity, because that's been but this is going on too. I totally understand what you're saying. I really am getting more out of the story than apparently you are, but that's a legitimate concern, I think.
And I think what this fits is my overall need to maintain a fandom of AEW is I want to be invested in characters, and a lot of the people I used to be invested in, I find myself less invested in them than I've been before. which makes you a more apathetic viewer of the product, which is definitely what I've become.
Yeah.
And so wanting to see guys be presented in a way that makes me interested in what they're doing, whether as a foil or a bad guy or a babyface on a run, I'm not getting that right now, like from a personal level. And so seeing something I see potential in, or once did see a lot of potential in, not live up to that potential as a fan is a little bit disenchanting and leaves me a little disillusioned. And lot of these other guys that I want.
I'm sorry. What characters do you like now that you think they're doing a better job with than the others? Is there anyone who?
Yeah, Adam Page. Adam Page is back where he should be.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they, like, my big thing with Adam Page is he was just such a scattershot character, and people kind of pretended like it didn't matter. Like, when people said like the Swerve feud was great, I was like, no, that was like the worst, most all over the place, good guy doing terrible things being done by, I mean, how there was no consistency in how anyone was portrayed, to the point where I'm like, you're cheering Swerve right now. And then you would be like, you're cheering Adam Page right now. And then he would be whiny and all these other things that just didn't stick. And now hasn't turned away from it. He's like accepted, embraced it in a way that makes him more authentic. And I think it's worked. And now when I see him, his wrestling has always been there. It's always been there. And now he doesn't have those character missteps where I'm like, so how am I supposed to feel about this guy? So he's back on track for me.
Hey, when he hit the first buckshot, he's on the apron getting ready to hit the second one.
Oh,
that was just great. Like, you just feel, you're like, this is my guy. Here's the baby face.
Exactly.
This guy is going to, boom, he's going to win. And damn it, he's excited about it. And I was like, get him, Hangman. That's
Dan, I think you touched on a key thing that I think a lot of the overhyped wrestlers, and I won't name them because I don't want to piss people off, that they don't understand. What that is making a move mean something. Mm-hmm. That little shake on the rope and having the camera guy focus on your face before you hit it, that's what makes a finisher important.
Yeah.
And the fact that somewhere along the line, he has not only found that, but he has magnified it to a point where three guys on a show can know exactly that facial expression he was using before he hit the move. That's way more important than the spectacular move.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that he has found that, that's like...
I talk about it. Other refs talk about it. They say it's what you do in between moves that counts more than what the moves you do. The moves you do are important, but if you stack them up and don't do stuff in between and get the most out of them,
Takesha.
Hey, look, but there's a reason everybody's saying that was such a great match, and it was not just the moves. I mean, that was fantastic, and that's the best stuff in wrestling. That's Bryan Danielson at Wembley last year. I mean, it's like, man, you feel it. I showed that to a non-fan, and they were just like, I see why you like this.
Cool.
Well, thanks, guys. Good conversation.
Yeah, great.
Thanks, Derek. I always appreciate your contributions.
I got to go get my beauty sleep. Hasn't worked for 39 years, but hey.
Do you get up at like 5 a.m. and work out at the gym for 2 hours?
I just go for walks, dude. I'm old, man.
Oh. I wish my walks gave me those muscles.
Oh, the muscles come after school. After school.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought you were saying I don't go to the gym. I just walk. And I'm like, who are you?
Yeah. Teaching school, not going to school. I'm like Dan, we teach the youth.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
They teach us too. That's the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew Zach Barber was going to run in and defend. I was going to bring it up. Like, Zach can explain the Hangman character to you during the Swerve feud and give you his interpretation of what happened. But he ironically also said, well, I don't know if it's ironic, but he goes, Zach Barber said the MJF story would work better on a soap opera where we could see him talking about his plot, not just in acting with us filling in the blanks. Now, I would say some of that, what you're saying about that also applies to Hangman, Zach. That's some of what Hangman went through a Swerve. We could have used the dots that you connected and the inferences you made were not landing with everybody who was watching. And I think Derek represents a lot of people, like the majority when it came to that feud. I think they were making it up as it went along because fans were really behind Hangman too. And they were like, oh, we got to adjust this. Yeah.
Awesome, guys.
Cool. Thanks, Derek. Yep. Good night.
Good night.
All right, let's see some comments here. Derek Mitchell says MJF stock has dropped since his friendship with Adam Cole and the Devil Angle. He came back from injury at Double or Nothing 2024 as MJF Helmsley. The best thing MJF has done was feud with Will Ospreay. Sadler Version 3 said on the opposite on Hangman. I really enjoy his work in the ring, but don't care for the character at all. What do you think of what is Hangman's character now? Where has it landed at?
I think he's still a little confused. He's still kind of they've done a decent job of not ignoring the stuff with Swerve, but they're putting it on the back burner as they need to. And that's still something that, kind of bothers him to some degree. But right now, for the most part, he is very determined babyface that thinks he's an incomplete person without the world title. Mm-hmm. And I think that they'll play it pretty straight with him and Ospreay. And we could talk about who should win that. I think you can't really go wrong. And I think it'll get people interested in this pay-per-view. And again, now I think they're going to do an Anarchy in the Arena or something like that. But right now, I mean, that's what's going to sell this pay-per-view. So, but I think that there's enough intrigue there. And, Ospreay is the complete babyface and Hangman is I'm trying to be a complete babyface and can I keep doing it? Is interesting enough to win the day, I think, to get people excited about the show.
Yeah. We'll go to some chats on MVP here or our MJF MVP Hurt Syndicate discussion. Sadler Version 3 says, I like the story, but I think Derek's point is fair that MJF is looking a lot like a dork. Fanblast says, I disagree with Derek. I think MJF is doing pretty well, especially compared to where he was. He's acting pathetic because it's part of the plan. But Fanblast adds, problem is, where can it go? They accept him, then they're idiots. He'll turn on them. In the meantime, he's a babyface again. The crowd already wants him in Hurt Syndicate. So, Dan, we're trying to tell Derek, hey, watch this play out. It'll land somewhere that might justify this journey and some of the faults that he sees in it or issues that he thinks can manifest. Does Fanblast bring up a good point? Do you think there is a way to tell the story with MJF being in the group that doesn't turn him babyface, doesn't undercut Hurt Syndicate's street smarts? They should know what MJF is and what is the point. I'm not saying there isn't one. It's not my job to book it out or predict exactly how it's booked, but does it seem like there's some good paths they can take in your mind?
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people feel that this may be a really short-term thing if he gets in there. I'd play it out. I think that it's going to have legs, and you can have a dynamic where people are working together that are not like super tight necessarily. And MJF and MVP are more buddies, and then maybe MJF wins Sheldon over a little bit more, and Lashley continues to be skeptical, but they get all on the team anyway. I think you can get quite a bit of time out of this before, anybody necessarily turns. Maybe he does win the world title, and then when he loses it, that's when they all break apart. And it's more that they're disappointed in him. The Syndicate's more disappointed in Max. So I think, I think that it's got a lot left in it. And if you get a good year out of any story like this, then usually the juice is worth the squeeze again. Where it ends up, I don't know.
King of Strong Style says, what do you guys think the end game is? Is it a match with Bobby? I think yes. A match with Shelton, a match with Bobby. It's possible MJF has a cohort who joins him for a tag team or a tag team that joins him for a 3-on-3 with MVP in the mix or something. Yeah, but Bobby Lashley against MJF with Bobby as a face and MJF as a heel is obviously the biggest match based on the scenario we see now.
Or if I think maybe he parlays this into the world title actually, and they stay together for a while, but suppose the thing doesn't work and he turns on him to go for the tag team titles. There's a lot of directions it can go. And I think they're all, again, anytime you devote this much time to a story that's not the Jeff Jarrett thing that they dropped and brought back and was terrible. As long as it's good, people are going to be invested in the matches that it creates, and so much the better. I think AEW needs more of that.
A couple of the comments, and we'll move on, and we'll get to Okada and Omega. Goodfellow 1422 says, I don't like them punking out MJF so much. either for a top guy. I was hoping he would do something dastardly by the end of the show. This wasn't the show. They didn't jam a bunch of stuff in. It'll be, next show.
It's good that you want to see him do something dastardly, and I bet you're going to get to see it pretty soon.
Yep. Then Sadler version 3 says, I don't think this is Sami Zayn begging to be in the Bloodline thing. I think this is MJF wanting the best group possible to back him up while trying to get the AEW championship. And that is, as Goodfellow 1422 says, it is a manipulation tactic. King of Strong Style says the MJF thing, I guess he's always trying to buy someone or pay someone to do something. It's odd because why does he do that when he's supposed to be the guy? Yeah, so I think the chat, largely kind of, to me, gets what's going on, like what we're supposed to think is going on, I guess. And I think they're communicating it effectively. In the end, trepidation that Derek is bringing up, I think is fair. And I kind of assume, I assume MJF and Tony Khan have accounted for this.
I mean, again, the one thing I like is that if anything, MJF was too protective of his character with the Pinnacle. He's willing to show ass, pardon the phrase, a little bit in this one. Mm-hmm. And he's not going to allow, I don't think he's going to allow himself to look like just a complete loser at the end of this thing. That's, he's been very involved in his own character. So I'm just not that worried about it from that perspective.
Some ideas here in San Francisco. Niners fan 23 says maybe MJF and MVP have some plot to take the group over. They could be in it together. I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out entirely, but to me, I think what you see is what you get with MVP right now. Yeah. Dougie Doug says, I'd love to see MJF and Wardlow turn on Hurt Syndicate and go for the tag titles. Fan Blast says, I would have loved to have MJF get angry after the last rejection and bring his old Dynasty faction to feud with the Hurt Syndicate.
Well, I mean, and I wouldn't go this direction, but he could help if he could help FTR. I wouldn't go that way, but using that suggestion or the Pinnacles would have been that, but still,
yeah. Southern Version 3 says, the question is, does MJF end up winning the title? If he does, then he can feud with Bobby over it. If he fails, he can blame the group and still feud with them by possibly making a new group. So, all right.
And again, if he does win the title, I mean, you got to put this thing off a little while. We got all these big stories around the world title that are going to have to play out before it gets, back.
Oh, for sure. That's why this could go on a while.
That's what I'm saying. Like, don't rush through this. It's a good story, and there's no reason to rush it. Okay,
so opening tag match, 8-man tag, Spot Fest. Not for everybody, but some people like it. And they went 26 minutes. We had multiple moments of the referee looking hapless and indecisive and out of control. But I like that they, it was sort of, I mean, if you watch wrestling long enough, you knew what's going to happen when Omega and Okada went face to face, and then the heel, turns around and tags out. It's worth a chuckle. They milked it, treated it as a big deal. Excalibur got to talk about their history. They teased going at it. I don't think they overdid it or delivered too much. Dan, walk me through that. Obviously that was the main story of this match, other than it filled, roughly a half hour counting ring entrances of TV time. And it is a bit of Tony Khan going back to his roots, which is with Dynamite, which is we're going to start with a hot match, state-of-the-art wrestling, and at a time when WWE is doing 3 or 4 matches over the course of 2.5, 3 hours sometimes, and they're, the quantity of wrestling to commercials talking and angles and recaps is way off right now with WWE. I mean, they've gone too far in that direction. So if you are the challenger brand and you're aware of that, it's a good time to do what they did here. And again, this match style isn't for everybody, and you can say this should be for everybody if they tweaked it a little. They could make it for everybody, but this was bookended by 2 really good matches, or 2 very state-of-the-art athletic matches. So Dan, your thoughts?
I mean, I thought this was certainly very good. I mean, it is certainly a bit of a spot fest, as you mentioned. I'll get to Kenny and Okada. I mean, I think they're doing a good job with it. I thought Excalibur did the best job he's done of trying to get the gravity of this thing across and just how great it was. I don't know why they've never shown any footage from New Japan that I can recall about this. I guess they will eventually, but they keep talking about it. I think they can show, what a huge deal it was. I know that's hard to shrink into a short period of time, but
yeah,
I might consider trying. In terms of the match itself, I thought, not that this is the main part of it, but as I'm watching the match, I'm really thinking, and you and Todd talked about this last week, Mark Briscoe beating Ricochet was really smart. Like, he needed that. And of course he took the fall to Okada tonight, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But he's good enough that he deserves that credibility that he occasionally beats a top guy or almost a top guy. Yeah. And so as he came to the ring, I thought, I'm more interested in seeing Mark Briscoe than I have been for a while, because he actually won a match clean against a good guy. I thought they did a good job featuring Speedball and Kevin Knight in terms of putting them together as a credible tag team. They keep doing well with that. So there were a lot of small things in the match I really liked. There were a few spots that were a little even silly for my tastes. But
for instance,
oh gosh, I knew you were going to say that.
The Bucks did that. They did the four-way into the senton, the stuff pile driver into, or the drop kick. It wasn't it looked like it was going to be a stuff pile driver, but it was a drop kick into tombstones while also landing with a senton on two of the other opponents. I actually thought that was kind of cool. I
wrote down the things that I didn't. I will say this. I thought maybe I forget if it was Nick or Matt Jackson. I think it was Matt, that they were trolling Jim Cornette with that 1980s arm spot where they keep beating up on the good guy, and then they accidentally beat up on the bad guy's arm with Ricochet. Mm-hmm. I saw it coming, and that didn't make it any less entertaining for me. I actually really love that spot, even though I can see where some people wouldn't like it. But I was like, okay, there's your homage to Southern wrestling while you're in Norfolk, I guess. I actually really did like that. And if people want to criticize me for that, go for it. It's fine.
You did or didn't like it?
I loved it. I thought it was great.
The didn't or did was hard to decide. I thought I knew what you're saying, but I wanted to make sure everyone knows.
I just that's somewhat what I grew up with, and I really got a kick out of it, and I saw it. It was fun to see it coming and then see it happen. I'm like, they can't not do this. They can't act like they're gonna make Ricochet get his arm pulled, and be the fool, and of course Matt Jackson being the fool, and then not follow through. So I really did like that they did. But yeah, just some of the 8-man spots, and I'm sorry I'm drawing a blank on them right now, but it was just like a little too contrived for me.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah.
I guess with that spot we talked about that ended with the sentons and stuff, it didn't strike me. Maybe if I rewatched it, I would change my opinion. There was a lot going on, but it didn't strike me as like to me, the worst spot was Fletcher having to lean over and watch Hangman gain his balance on the ring barricade before he could jump off at him, because he kind of, as he was trying to get his bearings, which you have to do, it's a price you pay. But Fletcher had just sit there and like stare and wait for him. That I don't think that 8-person spot. I think it was 8 people. Yeah. Anyone had to act unnaturally for an overly long period of time. 2 people were down on their back, knocked out. 2 other people were trapped. That
one I did like. I know what you're talking about now. Yeah. It was more they were all standing against each other, and I tried to take notes, but it was so much. It was the beginning of the show, so.
So as you look at your notes, too, I'll bring up Derek Mitchell. It was if I were a new fan to AEW and didn't know anything about Okada, what has he done in AEW to feel special? He comes off working at less speed and doesn't seem like one of the best in the world. Excalibur can talk about it, but at some point, Okada's got to show it more often, and not just on pay-per-view, with by definition, a higher percentage of people who were watching New Japan. Now we're going on 6, 7, 8 years ago when this stuff was peaking. That's a long time ago that this stuff that they're referring to, that this stuff was happening, and we've been through a lot. And Okada does come across as someone who's not hungry. He's not taking this seriously, and he's living off his reputation. And so the question is, I mean, you can sit here and say it's a big deal of Okada and Omega against each other. And, there's people who, this is a dream moment on national cable. They're excited, but I think they're also going to be, wondering, is this actually going to live up to expectations? And if the match is good, does it matter if the fan base has been conditioned to think Okada's kind of a comedy figure?
It's a fair point, Wade. I had to make a decision July 12th. Show in Arlington, where my sister lives in Dallas. It'd be fun. Avett Brothers at Red Rocks. I'm going to the Avett Brothers. It's not that I'm not really interested in it. But if you'd have told me 5 years ago that I was going to pass up Omega Okada even for the Avid brothers, I would have said you were crazy.
Yeah.
So they've dropped the ball to some degree on this. I mean, that's sure, of course.
Yeah. That's a good point. So yeah, talk more about what we saw tonight with Omega and Okada. I mean, like, anything you want to add? I
mean, they gave you enough. They gave you enough for the first thing. It was, and you could see there's a good dynamic there. But yeah, I mean, they did the little silly spot at the beginning where you knew they weren't going to actually lock up right away, and then Okada came in when he had the advantage, like a heel would do, and then by the end, there was kind of just interacting along with not quite the same as everybody else, but there wasn't any one thing that really stood out. I have a note here about Speedball versus Okada, and I wrote a smiley face next to that.
Yeah.
I think that kick he hit him with, I was like, damn, that was
announcers
nice.
made a big deal out of that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they should have. That was yeah.
Speedball snuck up. I mean, he's going to be a upper mid-card guy, but he can hold his own in a really fun way. And I think he just stands out. He's in some ways bland, but he's like this really quirky, distinct bland. And you can't say that about, Eddie Edwards and Roderick Strong. I mean, Roderick Strong tried, or Kyle O'Reilly, or Mike Bennett, or like the whole list of kind of the ROH interchangeables, the good workers and tights and boots with dark hair and often beards.
Kind of sometimes less rest on their laurels a little bit in terms of doing character development.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it may not be the greatest stuff in the world, but when they had him and Ospreay and Briscoe and Kevin Knight winning $100,000 each, like, that was little funny stuff. Like, he's done well. Now, I don't think the guy needs to be doing 5-minute interviews from what I've seen of him. But when they've had him on doing these little short, entertaining vignettes, he's pretty compelling, and he's bringing it in the ring too. So far, so good.
On the flagship yesterday, Jason Paul was my guest co-host, and I asked him who is weirder, Mark Briscoe, Kenny Omega, or Speedball Mike Bailey. Like, who's more weird? Because they're all Jason's like, can we call him quirky? I'm like, weird's not as derisive as it used to be. And Portland's motto is keep Portland weird. Austin's commandeered that and said keep Austin weird.
Yes.
But they're it's like nerd. It's like it's not what it doesn't mean what it meant in the 70s and 80s. And so on that show, Jason and I decided Omega was more weird than Speedball, but we would need to investigate to make a final decision by going into to see where Speedball lives. And people can listen to the whole conversation. We had fun with it. I said, I think Speedball...
I'll listen to this.
My speculation was Speedball's living room has furniture he inherited from his grandma, and he can tell you about the antiques and where they came from in a way that would surprise you. Then there would be a room where he'd have all his karate belts hung up on the wall. I did that as a teenager. Took him down as an adult. Bailey has not taken him down as an adult. They're still hanging up with his trophies, his tournament trophies for his forms and his sparring point fighting victories. And then there'd be some certificates on the wall. But then we'd go downstairs, and that's where you'd be a little creeped out. He'd walk you downstairs, have no self-awareness, but he'd introduce you to a hobby that creeped you out and made you think he's even weirder than you thought. And we were speculating what could that be. And I opened it up to emails. So I'm going to do it here too. I want to know, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. What do you think is going on in Mike Speedball Bailey's basement that would weird you out, but he wouldn't think it was weird? And Jason, I had some fun with that. So you can tune in, search Wade Keller on your podcast app, subscribe to the Blue Logo Show, and it's right there. Actually, we just ran tonight. We're running my 5 years ago interview with Mick Foley, which is, I think, spectacular. An hour and a half of covering a ton of stuff with Mick Foley. And so I highly recommend that. But right under that on the Blue Logo listing, you'll find the flagship with Jason yesterday. So I recommend both of those. Search Wade Keller, subscribe through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. Meanwhile, if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to this, our Red Logo Show too, so you can listen to it as a podcast, not just watch it on YouTube. Got my rapid fire Excalibur style plug-in. Dan, over to you.
I'm no expert on weirdness, but I do think although I have some of it myself.
That's not something you should declare. That's something your friend should declare. You're not weird.
Well, okay, just a little, a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do totally agree that I would have having this conversation with you or Jason or both, as we've done in Waterloo before. I mean, Mark Briscoe would last about 30 seconds of the conversation, and then I'd be like, okay, we could put him third, and let's talk about. So I'm glad to know that I think I'm in agreement in terms of at least who can be taken out of the conversation quickly.
Mark, you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
With Kenny, he surprises you with this kind of weird nerd culture quirkiness, but Speedball is a guy who, like, I think he'd surprise you at every turn with something that he wouldn't think is weird, but is weird. But no, I'm serious when I say that, but, tongue in cheek serious, if there's such a thing. He has snuck up on people. I mean, I think you can put him in a main event and people want to see him interact. He's bringing it into the ring. And I do think his kind of karate gimmick feels authentic. He isn't like jumping off the page charisma wise, but there's something distinct about him. And if he couldn't keep up in the ring and look credible, it wouldn't matter. Then he shouldn't be in these matches, but it's kind of working.
Yep. No, I agree. And like I said, they're doing a good enough job focusing on that tag team that may have some legs. And so, so many of the tag teams in AEW are just kind of like bland. I don't know, like there's not a lot of upside with them. Those guys, you can see development occurring in them, being in some really fun matches with top teams, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ramen Noodle says, I really like Speedball and Knight as a team. I hope they stick together. Yeah, I like sort of mix and match teams, and it'd be good for AEW to have. I mean, it's probably peak usage of both right now because there's not room for another guy who wrestles a Knight style in the top of the card. And Speedball's not a top of the card guy with all due respect and things I like about him. So, but as a tag team, it seems like WCW Battle Bowl. It feels like a random draw. But I think you could do some vignettes where like they take each other to their favorite spots. I don't know, as buddies. Well,
like I said, just a little stuff they did with those two and Ospreay and Briscoe. They only did a couple of them, but they were good. Like, it's like, okay, they seem to have a good chemistry. So, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump to JB's email, who covers some topics we haven't covered yet. And he begins with, it might be a minor nitpick, but taking 7 to 8 minutes just to finish the entrances for the opening 8-man tag match seems like a bit of overkill. I don't know how you don't do the entrances for them, given what not getting an entrance means in wrestling. I guess, the Bucks and Okada could have come out together, but Ricochet needs his own. I don't know. I'm okay.
I was okay. They had Speedball and Kevin come out together, which again, I kind of like that. I noted that. I thought, okay, they're building these guys as a team. Kenny's got to come out on his own. And I think it's disrespectful to Briscoe to have him just standing in the ring. So,
yeah. By the way, Fan Blast says, Speedball has one of the teeth a bully knocked out in 3rd grade displayed in a glass case because it taught him character. Don't add that to the Wikipedia page. I think Fan Blast is saying that's what's in his basement. Ramen Noodle says they both seem like Gen 1 Power Rangers. So, I think some people watch wrestling for cool ring entrances, and you have to have cool ring entrances and music for it to work. You can argue if AEW does a good enough job with that, but and I thought Kenny seemed like a big deal, in this, and the crowd crowd buoyed that. Number 2 from JB, maybe not so minor of a nitpick, is the entire match, including intros and post-match. One about 35 minutes. That's way too long for a match that doesn't have that much immediate significance. I disagree. I think every once in a while this style isn't for everybody, but if you're going to put those 8 in the ring, that's a lot of combinations of wrestlers, a lot of moves, a lot of spots. And if they think it's a feature of their style to do that, it is a good counter to WWE. And this did feel like a week where Tony Khan was busy with other stuff and didn't want to book in a granular, detailed way. So let's just throw an 8-man tag out there to fill 35 minutes. And I think I don't do it every week, don't do it every 3 weeks, but I'm fine with it every once in a while.
And they did a good job of promoting it, Wade. So you knew it was coming last week. There's going to be more people tuning in to see him go for a while than to see an 8-minute match. And I'm not saying he's suggesting 8 minutes, but I agree with you.
I like that Stokely references that he was looking for a tag team in 2024, and he finally found one. It ties up the loose end and rewards fans who are paying attention. What do you think of Stokely with FTR issue? Zach Barber wrote about this in his column on PWTorch.com. By the way, we have a lot of new columns and new writers at PWTorch.com, and I think it's kind of the place you go after you get the SEO headlines that may or may not be, here's what the former Baron Corbin said. It's like those sites just like, here, that kind of thing. I mean, if you need that fix, that's great. But if you want to kind of think and ruminate and get some different perspectives and understand what's happening, we've got some good writers, and we've added some really strong people with diverse backgrounds and points of view in different formats and columns. And I hope everybody's checking that out at PWTorch.com. Joining Zach, who's been doing really good work with the Feud Tracker for AEW. And he just, pointed out Stokely. I mean, I have issues with Stokely as a manager. Sometimes he seems comedic. Other times, and his rep behind the scenes, at least in a couple places that I had talked to, was his rep is he kind of thinks about how do I put myself over more than his guys. I don't know how fair that is, but it was a reputation that is there with him. So what do you think so far? What do you think at the beginning, and what do you think at this point?
The thing they did in Collision, I thought they interacted pretty well together. I wouldn't worry too much about FTR allowing themselves to get run over either. I think they would be cognizant of that and would nip it in the bud pretty quickly. I don't know that about Stokely. I don't have a huge impression of him either way going into this, but jury's out. But I've been reasonably. I liked what I've seen so far overall. I'm glad they're not continuing to just pick on Tony Schiavone. They had that one thing with Nigel. It was good for while it lasted. I'm not sure I would have done it, but I understood why they did it. And then let them be heels against baby faces, not against the announcer, because that to me is just so cheap. They do it too often.
Sadler version 3 says, I can never take Stokely seriously. His factions always flame out. He has a goofy look all the time, similar to how Wade couldn't take Sean Spears seriously with his goofy face. LOL. Ramen Noodle says, yeah, Stokely is like 0-4 as a manager, but still, I think this one will work. I think he's serious, and it could. I mean, there's something there. There's something.
Yeah, and that's credit to FTR too. Like they're pros, and they'll do all they can to make it work. And they're obviously a great team. So there's eventually, base. I know that the Hurt Syndicate supposedly not baby faces, but I don't know how long they're going to hold on to that. So I mean, this could be as good of a program as I see on the horizon.
By the way, I'll bring this up. 5 guys are cheering them. They're kind of obnoxious. The beatdown wasn't vicious and bloody, but it did feel like sort of, haha, don't take anything seriously on this show. Like 5 guys are cheerleading, saying, we like to repeat. And then MVP goes, it's fun to say, but it's more fun to do it. And then they beat him up. Yeah, you threw him in a bin and you threw him against a wall. It wasn't super violent, but it still came across to me as like, to me, it would be better for Syndicate if MVP said that and those 4 guys just looked at Bobby and Shelton and got scared and ran. I think this little subtlety would have been better. Just beating up randos backstage with no consequence when they didn't physically go after him just felt kind of hack to me.
Well, again, I joked about it. I mean, to some degree, if you're a fan, you're like, maybe we shouldn't cheer for these guys. They beat these people up for no reason. I mean, and I don't feel like they were trying to get heel heat with it either. It's not like, oh, we're getting too many cheers. We don't want that, because they seem to like it. Mm-hmm. They do things to try to cultivate the cheers, and it's working. I'm not even saying that they shouldn't, but it was out of place. I didn't like that.
I can imagine the pitch backstage and people going, this is a knee slapping funny little backstage sketch. It adds entertainment to the show, but I don't think it has an eye on the structural, the narrative structure of the show, the rules of engagement. You want to have some immersion in the product. And it's like why I speak out against the security guys getting beat up all the time. Like it's a tired cliche that's overdone. So anything like saying the word bitch, it's like it's got overdone. It's not like I'm a prude about it. It's just like if 4 people per show are saying it on every show every week over and over, it's everyone trying to be cool with some edgy word that if everyone's saying it, it's not edgy. So with this type of thing, like beating up the security guys, it's like they're just there to do their job. They've done nothing wrong and wrestlers beat them up. It's this trope that makes no sense. So I just think things should make sense. And I think all those things add up to a product that's more immersive for the viewer, where then you don't end up with fans saying one more time to Braun Breaker beating up the beloved Sami Zayn because they don't take anything seriously. Like, right. I think you need the Joe Tessitore type taking everything seriously. You need a GM taking things seriously. You need to enforce the rules. You need to make the championship seem important. You have to have gravity to what's done, which is, like Zach wrote in his column about, like they're making a big deal out of what FTR did, but what about what Hangman and Swerve did, for instance? Like even just beating up security guys. If you're not supposed to take it seriously, you're conditioning your audience to not really take anything seriously. And then it just becomes about entertainment and star power and communal chants as opposed to buying into the story. So I think that's a big problem in WWE right now. We talked a lot about that Monday night and with Jason on the flagship, especially Monday night on the Raw Post show. And we were getting emails from people who hadn't even heard our rant, and they were like point for point matching what we were thinking. And I got more emails on it from people going, yeah, what you're talking about is what I'm feeling about the WWE product right now. And there needs to be a correction. AEW would benefit from counter programming that. And I think an immersive, logical structure to things, and not just doing things because somebody backstage says this will be funny. It would be prudent for them at this point.
Well, and getting back to Stokely, like we got the fine canceled for FTR because everything seems to go in this company, including the stuff with Swerve and Hangman. Okay, it's consistent, but it's still not a good story. Like you don't need to lean into that just because you screwed up in the past. And I know it's a way to justify, hey, we're going to put Swerve on or Stokely on the team here, but I didn't really. I don't know. That's not my thing either. Like you need to have, Wally Carbo out there to some degree. That's holding the line, and they have a lack of that in AEW. And yeah, the thing with it was kind of cheap. The thing they did beating up those guys, and the Hurt Syndicate beating up those guys, and it's inconsistent with the rest of their character to me. It wasn't great.
Zach Barber says, Wade Keller promoting the idea of a GM. I never thought I'd see the day. I was always for a authority figure who wasn't an ex-wrestler introducing the show, standing in the ring, walking through things, and all that. I'm a middle management type who's trying to restore order and enforce rules. I've always been in favor, and I think they're getting it right for the most part with Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis. I worry they're turning them into they're leaning too hard into them as TV characters. I think faulting on the side of making them boring background players who aren't a super big part of a show, but just are there to announce decisions. Jack Tunney plus a little bit is better. Wally Carbo only on occasion, not every week, would show up on AWA TV as a guy.
Bill Watts.
Yeah. So it's been done well before. So but yeah, I'm not against GMs. I'm against the way WWE did it as a celebrity GM who becomes a character. But I think, having someone enforce the rules and create a sense of structure and organization is good, because you want that baseline of someone is trying to enforce actual rules that exist. So when there's chaos, it seems like rules are being broken. If there's no rules, what's the fun? And you can't even, by definition, break a rule if there aren't any. You don't get away with anything if there's no one competent enforcing things. And that's why I like that baseline competent GM character keeping things in check, because in the end, the structure of pro wrestling is a bunch of athletes who want to win titles and prove they're the toughest are there to earn money in front of crowds and beat up other people with rules and structure and consequences to wins and losses. And you need to have someone be the face of that and represent that as a baseline in the structure. So I've always been that in favor of that. Okay. Back to JB's email. Josh Alexander and Brody King is definitely a match I'd look forward to. That being said, neither guy is in a very good position to eat another loss. I'd like for them to do more with Brody, but I also don't want Alexander kneecapped this early in his heel run. What do you think of Josh Alexander and Brody King? I mean, kind of agree. I think Brody will probably lose because he always does in situations, but Josh is undefined yet, so we don't know for sure how Tony feels about him.
Yeah, it's good to have a match with intrigue, for one, because I kind of think Brody might win. I feel like when you're bringing somebody in,
it's like Briscoe Ricochet. Eventually, you got to get a win if you want them to be
relevant. I think so. And I think he could afford a loss and then try to grow from it, right? I mean, so maybe I'm wrong, but so it's a good match from the perspective of you may want to, you're curious about what's going to happen. And both guys are pretty talented. Alexander's looked good so far.
Yeah.
So, again, I think AEW has done a lot of good things, both in their presentation and in their talent acquisitions in the last few months.
Mm-hmm. All right, back to the email. How is intentionally shoving the ref not grounds for a DQ? Otherwise, why wouldn't everyone just shove the ref if they were in danger of losing? Taz said that the ref, quote, didn't see the low blow, but he clearly saw and felt being shoved. This is in reference to the main event.
Yeah.
I've said years ago, WWE, this is before AEW existed, should publish their kayfabe but official rule book online. It should be a downloadable PDF. There should be reference. There should be like rule 13B, 13C. Like wrestlers should be able to refer to it. GM should be able to refer to it, and their booking should be obliged to adhere to it. Because, I mean, why not? First of all, yeah, it's a little tougher because you can't just do whatever you want on a whim. But so what? You're on national television trying to draw millions of viewers, maybe there's a little hard work, but there should be some structure to it. And there should be a rule about if a ref gets shoved and the ref knows who shoved him, it should be a DQ. And if that is a rule, you should enforce it consistently. If there's a tag rope and there's a 5-second rule for breaking on the ropes, there's a 10-second count outside the ring. If the rule book says there's a 10-second count outside the ring for countouts, but it's up to the ref's discretion based on the tone of the match, if it doesn't seem as if it's one wrestler's getting counted out because they're incapacitated, but rather they're putting up a fight. Like, you can have like little subsets that kind of build in some flexibility with referees, but put it in writing and then adhere to it.
I did like that Nick Wayne broke the 10 count by running back into the ring, because it seems like those referees don't really give a damn. But that was smart. Like, it makes it more compelling to watch the match. And he's like, oh, I need to make sure I don't get counted out. The one save thing in WWE tag matches that has never actually been explicitly stated.
Corey Graves once or twice for like 3 weeks brought it up, and then
I must have missed that. But now I was surprised Don Callis didn't say, "Oh, Kyle stumbled into the ref" or something. Like you could, it almost made it look like he stumbled a little, so you could try to sell it that way. I mean, try to give a reason. Try to give a reason. So, I'm with you on that.
All right, cool. Let's see. Number 6 from JB. What build do you think that you'd like better? Hangman against Moxley or Ospreay against Moxley at All In?
Yeah, and I think this is something we could discuss. Like, there's going to be a lot of predictions and a lot of thoughts. I felt this whole time like they were built toward Ospreay.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be Hangman.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
And why? Make your case. Or is it just personal?
No, I think it is like has recovered really well, I think, even though there's still some uncertainty with his character. Like, he's in a really good place, and to me, he's the bigger baby face. I know Ospreay is like the ultimate baby face right now, and he's cool, and I know if we, flip the dial to the Observer, Dave would be all, we got to go with Ospreay or whatever. But I'm not there. Like, I really love watching Ospreay wrestle, and I think he's tremendous. But there's something about Hangman that's, maybe it's more the not AEW original, but pure. I'm the guy to save AEW because I've been here the longest, and I'm the one that's fighting for it.
It fits.
To me, Moxley's the guy that needs to be defeated by the defender of AEW. And that's not the guy that was in, New Japan for the first 4 years of the existence. I'm actually talking this out and thinking about it while I'm talking to you. I think that's why. I want the real AEW hero to save AEW, and I feel like that's Hangman.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a more compelling choice than I thought we'd be at this point, because it just seemed like Ospreay was the guy.
I think I'll be outvoted. I think there's a lot of people that will be against me, and I'm a little surprised I've come to this conclusion. But I was definitely watching tonight. I'm like, they're really going to screw up if they don't have Hangman win this match, and I was pretty confident they would. But obviously there was uncertainty.
Yeah. All right. Is the Ops a better trios team with Hobbs or Hook as their third? Will Hook ever reappear with the group? I have no idea of the severity of his medical issue from a few weeks back.
They need to act like it's bad.
Yeah.
Hobbs in there. This is a win-win. Like, he makes the group better, and this is really good for Hobbs.
And you know what's, first of all, Hook's not a top level threat in the ring. He's a novelty wrestler. He hasn't gone beyond that, and this can help Hobbs not hinder him, not hobble him, to be in this group and look credible and look like the badass enforcer. And and Mox really likes Hobbs. So, there's a kind of a chemistry on opposite sides here that can work well too. I like
when Hobbs put that squash match away tonight. Like, when he pulled his straps down and he did all that. It's like, he's compelling sometimes when he wrestles jobbers. But I was actually paying attention to this because I'm like, this is a cool group. Like, I want to watch and focus on these guys. And I just think that external benefit, of being around these people that exude positive energy is good for all three of them. but it's really good for Hobbs. Like,
yep.
They've been trying. It just seems like they've tried with him, and it's always been just a half step missing. And I feel like this is naturally working. And don't mess it up, because it's helping a lot, in my opinion.
And I think he's better in a tag situation for a little while here than singles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they make the 6-man titles seem important.
Yeah.
Like, that was good that they had them beat, the Death Riders, and they should hold them for a while and defend them a lot. And that's what those titles should be for. They should be a part of. You can put that on a main event on any TV show, and you're not like ruining your other main events, but you're also getting people somewhat involved in your show.
Couple comments. I'll go back to JB's email. Jarek Mitchell says, Hangman Page has a story that fans are invested in and have an emotional attachment to him, while Will Ospreay puts on great matches but doesn't seem to have a deep emotional connection. Siler Version 3 says, nah, man, give Ospreay the strap already. Ramen Noodle says, Dan is right. Hangman has to win. His matches with Mox are goated. So just some opinions there.
And again, some people are going to go for Ospreay and say, well, he gave it up last year and he should have got it, whatever. I'm sorry, that's a sunk cost. You got to go with the best possible option.
Yep.
And I think it's Hangman.
Sunk cost, economics 101. Yes. Okay. I think that Joe and Mox are the two best guys in AEW and maybe all of pro wrestling who convincingly portray legitimate badasses. Well, there's Braun Breaker right now, and Jacob Fatu. I think that is why I like the idea of this championship matchup so much. I like the steel cage stipulation in their match. It makes sense that Joe would want to keep the other Death Riders out. This is a case of a gimmick having a purpose beyond it's an annual event or it's super violent and we want to have people buy the show. Cage matches don't keep people out, but they at least create an obstacle.
In AEW, the actual cage match, it seems now not always the blood and guts, but it seems like they've done a pretty good job protecting the actual cage matches in AEW. That's my recollection. Somebody may bring up something, but just because WWE screws it up terribly, does not mean that it's not legit in AEW. And I'll tell you, Wade, I know better in a way, but you're never going to get me to go into watching Samoa Joe wrestle for the world title. It could make no storyline sense. And I'm like, he might win. He might win.
Yep.
He's freaking Samoa Joe. Like, he's awesome. And it's a great use of TV time. And I wouldn't even, if they have him win, awesome. He was a great world champion. I don't expect it, but I would never object to it because he's Samoa Joe.
Yep. Tony Schiavone says two of the greatest women's champions when Mercedes and Toni Storm faced off. There are two different levels of champion, Tony. The announcer shouldn't be muddying that. I don't know that they've established their two different levels. I mean, I guess the way you establish it is by having Mercedes go, well, she just is a belt collector, so it doesn't work as well. But like, I want to win the world title, the women's, and act like that's a step up for her. But they just sort of treat it like they don't have a brand split. Someone in the chat suggested that. They don't have a roster split, but they sort of, it feels that way. The TNT title's largely on TNT on Saturday nights, the international, whatever. I mean, there isn't a definition of what titles matter more than others. So I don't know. I don't have a big problem with Tony putting it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think your world title should come first. I think it's more that Mercedes is undefeated, and they do kind of subconsciously rely on her previous world titles across the street. So, I'll tell you this. Again, Toni Storm, like, I'm not saying anything people don't already know, but she's great. Like, these squash matches are great TV. You're just like, and again, I was compelled. I really,
we talk about what you do in between moves. Toni Storm is a master. I mean, there's like, you don't need moves in her match. You can just watch what she does between them and be entertained. But she also, I mean, she I was going to say she doesn't overdo it, but she overdoes it, but with a self-awareness and a purpose that matches her character. Yeah. But she also is credible in the ring, and that helps. She doesn't have a gimmick as a shortcut because she's a bad worker. She has a gimmick because it feels authentic to her creative impulses, and she also is really good in the ring. So it's a good matchup.
It took me a little while to warm up to the whole timeless thing. I didn't ever hate it, but I was kind of like, I don't know if this is the right tone. And again, there's some things that I have to. That's Zach's making a good point. Maya was good. It was a good match.
Zach Barber in the chat for our audio listeners says, shout out to Mia Yamashita, or Yamashita, excuse me. She is a prime example of why partnerships are a good thing.
Yeah. It was a good use of TV time. It was a good match. So,
yeah.
But again, there's been some things where I've been a little down on AEW when they introduced them, and both Hurt Syndicate and the whole Timeless character. Not that I thought they'd be terrible, but they've really exceeded my expectations.
I like the MJF. This is JB again. I like the MJF Hurt Syndicate angle finally advanced tonight to the point of a tangible outcome. MJF has to hurt someone to impress Lashley and join the group. The question is, at what level will the person that MJF hurts have to be, and who will it be? I haven't thought about it much. I mean, I've tried to in the course of watching the show and reporting on the show and hosting this, but haven't really come to any solid conclusions on it. Did anyone jump out to you, or can it be almost kind of random? It just has to impress Bobby. I mean, I don't think Bobby wants like an assault that leads someone to be hospitalized. That's not Bobby's character.
Right.
Bobby should want him to hurt someone in the ring. Like he's not Gunther, but Bobby's also not like a raving madman.
Yeah, maybe it's Roderick Strong type, and he puts the salt of the earth on him and messes him up. I don't know. I mean, it's not that the guy can't wrestle and he can't injure people. Given even his character, it's just he seldom shows it. So maybe he gets motivated to, show that really determined, hard-nosed, wrestle to injure style.
Side note from JB, I find it incredibly believable that MJF would lose his cool and go off on Lashley with low-hanging insults only to be put in his place. As always, love the show, and go VIP. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Recommendations come in all the time from our VIP members. Why aren't you a VIP member? I think you deserve to get the best wrestling coverage and everything that we put out there. We record throughout the week, and there's a whole array of VIP shows you're missing out on, VIP podcasts, and I think if you enjoy our approach to covering wrestling, and I think it's different than a lot of what's out there, to be honest, and it's sort of like for grown-ups, and it's not for partisans, it's not bombastic, we're not over the top personalities, just trying to, coming across like we wish we were on TV as a wrestling manager, but look at us podcast about it. It's a more journalistic approach. And, we have college professors as co-hosts. And I mean, we like the array of occupations that we have, school teachers and priests, on and on. It's just like, it's a really cool conversation all the time. And if you're a VIP member, you support that. You get ad-free versions of our free shows. Commercial breaks are skipped right over. And you also get, a whole array of VIP exclusive shows like The Fix with Todd Martin, Everything with Rich and Wade, our post pay-per-view roundtables, the Wade Keller hotlines covering news with my take on things and some backstage news on things pretty regularly. Plus, in shows I'm not part of, a whole array of really cool shows, and then our library too. And a really nice mobile ad-free site and desktop site. The ads are taken away, and there's exclusive content. And the PDF version of our paper copy newsletter every week with exclusive columns and features. So yeah, go VIP. Details on the screen for our YouTube people. Our YouTube viewers, Patreon has a 7-day free trial. So to Spotify, you can get to Patreon through Spotify. So just search PWTorch VIP in Patreon or Spotify and get a 7-day free trial if you're just interested in the podcast lineup. If you want the full VIP membership with ad-free website and access to the library dating back 35 plus years, hundreds of retro radio shows from the 90s, and also with a full VIP membership, you can customize your RSS feed on Apple Podcasts or whatever iOS or Android app you use into show-specific feeds or by category, clustering them. It's a really slick setup. Full details on that is at pwtorch.com/govip. pwtorch.com/govip. So, Dan, I'll throw to you for a topic that you want to bring up. I don't know if we have a ton left to talk about before wrapping up, but anything else in your notes that you want to bring up from the show tonight?
Let me take a quick look here. I mean, I really wanted to talk about Joe, and I think we did a good job with that. I'm really compelled with everything he's doing. I had some notes on the patriarchy stuff, but I think.
Well, I was going to say we haven't covered that yet. What do you have to say about that?
I'm kind of intrigued by it. I like the use of Jay Lethal. I thought that was a pretty good match, and it makes it. I kind of am intrigued by Christian being more of a leader and actually looking out for his charge, apparently. So, I thought, and they always do a pretty good job with that. I'm not sure they've given you much thought that Jamie Hayter has all that much of a chance at the pay-per-view, and maybe they shouldn't. I don't know, but it's an intriguing choice. It seemed weird that they brought Mercedes out for a second, more annoying interview, although they did it just for her to get interrupted. But again, maybe you should ask the question, if she wasn't going to be interrupted, would you really have her do 2 interviews on one show?
Yeah.
Because maybe you could have her come out to guest ring announce or guest commentate, and then have Jamie confront her, as opposed to have her do. She's not that great of an interview. The one with Renee was pretty good. It was fine.
Yeah.
But that was kind of weird. I mean, it wasn't really well thought out from that perspective. But no, I mean, I enjoyed the show. I think we've talked about a lot, and overall, definite positive review.
Did Nick Wayne's win just sort of come too quickly and out of nowhere, or did that work? Or did it not seem like it came out of nowhere? To me, it seemed like it just was sort of sudden over Jay.
Yeah, no, it was. But it was a wrestling move. I was okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. I mean, I'm not even. Hopefully, I didn't frame that critically.
Yeah.
I think finishes should happen in unexpected ways often enough that you buy into near falls when it isn't after ref interference and a bunch of shenanigans and 3 finishers. So it was just interesting.
It was a match that you kind of know what's going to happen, but there was a little bit of intrigue, I felt like.
Yeah, Jay Lethal's a legacy guy with a ROH push enough.
So I think it might have been even more if they would have thought to promote it before tonight, then it would seem more like than just a vehicle for Nick. But yeah, I thought it was good, and I thought Jay presented himself well, challenging. Not surprising that he did. He's a pro. So.
Zach Barber introduces what might be our last topic. He goes, I really hope Jamie Hayter wins at the pay-per-view. Dan, what do you think of the way they're building up? Is there suspense? I mean, at least they're playing up that either thing can happen, and they're kind of, Jamie stared at the ring at Tony after Mercedes ran away in her heels. So, I mean, they're paying lip service to both outcomes, just like they are with Hangman and Ospreay.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if Jamie won. I don't, again, even having Mercedes, why not just have Jamie come out and do an interview? And then Mercedes could have confronted her.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Portraying her as they're portraying her as the secondary character. We got to bring Mercedes out for a second interview so people don't turn the channel. Well, then, I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I thought they made her feel like less than.
Yeah, I like presupposition being important to the production and presentation of wrestling. I talk about it a lot, but I think it's underrated as a factor that helps immersion. And WWE's super sloppy about it. They don't do the people chatting. We're filming someone on their cell phone. They don't do that anymore, thank God. I just harped on that for years. But they still have the camera filming someone walking backstage for no reason. And something always happens unexpected that they couldn't forecast. And it's just fake. And wrestlers work hard to make moves look real. Wrestlers work hard to make their characters seem believable. Why can't the production people create a scenario where there's a presupposition to the camera filming someone? It's not that hard to do. They just don't think it's important. But I think a manifestation, and it's not just that, it's a collection of a lot of things, but the manifestation of the crowd responses right now in WWE that I think are alarming is a result of a lot of don't take anything seriously. It's just a production. We're all here to have fun, and we want you judging us, and we're catering to you, the fans. They've empowered the fans to be participants. And so AEW strength is to counter-program things that are WWE weaknesses. And WWE's been on a hot streak. It's been hard to figure out where do we fit in. But if I'm Tony Khan, I'd be paying attention to not just people in my social media echo chamber praising me. I'd be paying attention to what people are being critical of WWE for. New voices, people who have liked WWE but are concerned right now, and go, how can we capitalize on that? That's a strategy for a challenger brand, but he's got to be aware of what's happening. Dixie Carter should have been watching WWE every week, start to finish, if she wanted TNA to be competitive. And I don't think she did much at all, if at all. So, Dan.
And that criticism of having Mercedes for the second interview as opposed to Jamie, I mean, that's the kind of stuff AEW does drop the ball on occasionally. I would say 18 months ago, they were making much larger, or at least larger errors. They've made some steps in the right direction, but you should always have somebody asking the whys. Why did you do this? Why does this make sense?
Yep.
If the answer is it doesn't make sense, can we present it a different way to make it make sense?
Yep.
That's worth a lot if you want to have people consistently buy into your show.
Yes, I totally agree. So again, if you have theories on what's in Speedball Mike Bailey's basement, Wade Keller podcast at gmail.com. We've already got some good emails on this. I'll work them into probably a Wade Keller hotline or else next week on the flagship. Chris J in the chat said Speedball has the taxidermied animals and medieval weapons that Todd Martin had in his hotel room from his trip to Scotland. And Dougie Doug says Speedball seems like the type of guy who would invite you to go bird watching with him on a Monday. Yeah. So Dougie Doug, I don't know if I read this, but Mike Bailey's risen to the occasion. I had low expectations not knowing much about him, but he has more charisma than Undisputed Era and the Kingdom combined. I feel like I'm missing another theory on what's in his basement. But it's fun and it's done with affection, not malice. So cool. All right. Dan, thanks so much. Always great having you on.
Enjoyed it, Wade. Yeah, good to talk to you. And I'm sure we'll be in touch. Thanks for everybody for joining in.
Love doing it. Thanks everybody. Please like the show, like right now. You watch this far, you must like it. Or even if you don't click the like button. It really does help us. And subscribe if you're a lurker and a listener, but you're not subscribed yet. We want to hit some landmarks in terms of our followers. We got in the YouTube game a little late. Things were going well on the podcast side of things. We kind of had the inertia there, but on the YouTube thing, we want to grow, and you can help us do that. So if you like what we're doing here, like the show, comment below, subscribe to our channel, and then you can also set an alarm to ring when we go live if you want to have alerts and reminders when we go live. Also, I mentioned we have a great team of volunteers contributing to the site, rounding out our coverage. If you're interested in that, being a contributor with written weekly columns and reports, you can go to the staff page at PWTorch.com and look at slots that are open, but we're open to new ideas for columns too. Email me at kellerwade@gmail.com if you're interested in that. That's the good email, kind of a catch-all. If you're not responding to the show, that's my main email, kellerwade@gmail.com. And appreciate it very much. And and just I mentioned the Wade Keller podcast. Subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast too. That is free, different show each day of the week with different themes to the shows. And I think you will find at least one and perhaps 5 or 6 shows each week that you like that are worth your time. So yeah, check out. We got the 90s Past Cast, the All Elite Conversation Club, our post shows after pay-per-views. We got Acknowledging WWE, Javier Machado hosting that, the NXT crew, and more. And I think that's it for plugs. So once again, thank you everybody. Thank you, Dan, and we'll talk to you all next time.